What will never be the same again once the pandemic is over? Time spent with my kids. Pre-pandemic I would leave the house 5 days a week at 6:15 a.m. to commute to the office, usually before anyone else in my house is awake. And I'd get home most evenings just in time to put them to bed. I'll never go back to that. The past 8 months I've actually seen my boys grow up in front of my eyes and I get lots of quality time with them every day, even with work from home. I know now what I was missing. Yup, right there with you, man. Only positive to come from this whole mess. Made me take a step back and rethink my life. Hopefully your boss will finally admit that all his dumb meetings actually could have been emails all along. Everyone at my work got zoomed out, so we have 1 day a week where no one can schedule a Zoom meeting. Everything has to be handled via email, or you have to provide a written justification. The Zoom fatigue is very real. My dogs have expected me to basically be around all the time and rub their bellies 24/7. Most of the mom and pop stores in my town are gone forever. Some of these stores I grew up with. The Nickel Arcade, the tiny French bakery my aunt took us to when we got good grades, the only ramen shop open after 10 p.m., my favorite donut shop, the fancy British tea shop I never had a good date in but many London fogs that were utterly perfect, the only dim sum place, the handmade mochi and tea shop, the only cigar shop in town to get fancy cigars. I lament the death of all these tiny businesses I took for granted. I always thought they'd be around. Now my community is left with just brand-named box stores, no more originality and flavor. Just closed sky-rise buildings surrounded by a garishly lit Denny's, Olive Garden, and Target. I feel for you. My favorite tea house closed, among many other small businesses I adored. A massive amount of people now know they can work from home. Working in an office, particularly in Japan. I live in Japan. Going to the office and spending all day here is a deep cultural tradition. Asking your manager at a traditional Japanese company to work from home regularly is on par with asking them, "Hey, I just realized I'm Dragonkin. Can you please work with the cafeteria to put live cats on the menu?" You would get the same reaction, even in cases of personal illness or family emergency. So many companies here, even in the early COVID days, flat out publicly said, "No, we will never be doing that work from home thing. Sorry, that's laughably naive." Then, the country issued a declaration of national urgency, not an actual emergency, as that would entitle the government to be actually accountable to the livelihoods of the people. Just a very strong-arm public stance and shaming businesses into following suit. Literally those same companies issuing the statements above were scrambling the next week to get their staff safely working from home, online, using remote meeting tools, etc. So, that was a big game changer. Still, everyone was thinking, once the urgency order is lifted, we'll all be going back to work as normal. Well, the urgency order lasted a few months. And those traditional Japanese businesses saw what happened to their bottom lines when they no longer had to pay for electricity, heating, AC, cleaning, office equipment and maintenance, subsidized travel expenses to slash from work, soft items like coffee and snacks, etc. And so many of them now are singing the praises of a sensible work from home policy and planning for even long-term work from home options. Now the society is changing very rapidly to accommodate working from home. More people recently are less looking at buying their first house/apartment in crowded Tokyo outskirts/close suburbs, and looking more to buying 1 to 2 hours away in the boonies where land is actually affordable and living is better. It's watching a sociological essay/study unfold, live, in slow motion. It would be great for health outcomes if everyone did space out a bit. Everyone might end up better off. That being said, there is also an emotional benefit to having your workplace separate from your home. Kind of similar to the whole don't put a TV in your bedroom or you'll start subconsciously thinking of it as a place to watch TV and have a harder time falling asleep. Obliviousness to how many things I touched between hand washings. I used to work retail/cashier and the way money smells is so peeping gross. I'd help count cash/store cash at open/close and money just stinks. At the time it was like, yeah, it's gross, but I'll just wash my hands before lunch. Meanwhile, I'd be rubbing my eyes and nose, biting my nails, stocking food, touching my face. I'm genuinely wondering how I didn't get some kind of plague before all this. Probably the grossest thing people don't think about that I learned working retail is a lot of packages in the freezer and refrigerated sections have snot on them. When you are in the cold for so long your nose runs a lot, but they expect you to finish 10 hours of work in 6 hours. If you take the time to blow/wipe your nose every time it drips you get yelled at for being too slow. So the back of your gloves become a quick and disgusting tissue replacement. Not to mention when a drop falls out 10x quicker than normal for some reason and lands right on the package. Well, it's only on the packaging, so it's not a big deal. Remember that next time you open up a bag of shredded cheese and stick your hand in it. Edit. Since people like that one, you might also want pay attention to lids/caps for food/drinks. If it isn't attached with a sticker or plastic, wash it before it contacts the food/drink. There's about a 1 in 10 chance that the cap was off in the box, and it can get hella dusty if it sits in the back for a while. Thanks. Something new for the germ conscious out there, lol. Packaged cold foods, cleaner than fresh produce. Office life. My company has already announced that once we are allowed to go back, we'd only be going once or twice a week. It seems many realized how feasible working from home is. They told us we aren't going back until July. This is true. And even then we will be working from home 4 out of 5 days a week. And then there's me, who has not missed a day of going into work through this whole pandemic, despite the fact that we had 11 cases pop up in the span of 3 days last week. We're still all required to come in. I'm quarantining with what might be COVID since last Friday, the first time I haven't gone in 11 months, and the leadership still wants me to work. I hate my boss. No kidding. You should hate him. My attitude towards my entertainment backlog. Previously, I used to look at my PlayStation library or my Netflix list and think if I just had a few weeks off, I could make a serious dent. I've had more than a few weeks off, and my backlog seems, if anything, more endless. I'll probably be in the retirement home with that little voice in the back of my head going, Peaky Blinders is meant to be good. Should get on that. You could die tomorrow and never find out just how good Peaky is. My bank balance. In the words of the great Tiger King himself, I'm never gonna financially recover from this. I am afraid that a lot of karaokes and spas in our country will go out of business. My marriage. My wife and I had to work from home together, separate jobs, from March until September, when she had to go back to the office. I am still working from home. During this time, we became increasingly closer. I have heard so many stories of marital problems being caused by COVID. I literally miss my wife every day she has to go to work. I meet her at the door like a peeping puppy. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. Sometimes forced proximity does too. Healthcare workers going to work without a mask on. Definitely took for granted seeing my co-workers' smiling faces during my long shifts. I started my job at a hospital in May, and it's funny to see my co-workers take their masks off briefly because I've worked with them for 6 months and didn't know what their face looked like. Yes, I was freaked out because this man was walking quickly towards me in our parking lot and motioning at me. Turns out to be none other than the dude I had been orienting for several days, and I had just never seen his whole face. Where I live, everyone wears masks, and yesterday somebody tapped my arm and it took me like 5 seconds to realize who it was because they'd changed the type of mask they wear. I hadn't realized how much their mask had been a part of how I identified them.